Call meeting to order. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. All members present except for Greg. There are no minutes. Craig's looking up. Was he on the phone?
No, I don't think so. I spoke to him earlier today. I don't
Okay.
think he's.
All right. So there's no minutes. Public Works. You're up first. If you'd like to come sit in the chair right in front of me. Oh.
Oh, that quick, huh? Doesn't mess around. I was asked, you have this already?
We have that. He's in it.
This is the copy of what our old.
I don't have that.
We went through our old loader and made a list of all the repairs that it needed. To kind of justify why we're asking for a new loader. You see there's a big number right tires and rims are a real big one or whatever. You know, we've had the machine since 1998. The salt that we mix the salt and sand with, you know, that's what we use to load it. The salt's gotten inside the rims. We're having a hard time keeping air in the tires because it's all pitted and things like that. If you go down to the bottom or whatever, they gave me a price just to figure out what's wrong with our, you know, our ride control or whatever. It was just basically diagnostics. It's $400 just to tell us what's wrong with it. And they couldn't give me a number to fix the ride control. The ride control is when you're going down the road, it doesn't do, you know, you go slamming down the road because of the tires in the front bucket. And you understand that. And one of the other ones is our steering cylinders. Need to be rebuilt on that. And that's a $1,400 right now. And we've been holding on until you guys decided what we were gonna do. So, you can see the total there is $30,000 to put this thing back on the road. And that was no computers hooked up to the engine, checking oil pressures, hydraulic pressures, or anything like that. This was just, you know, stuff we could find. And in one of these W.I. Clark things, they had offered us $18,000 for the machine on a trade-in, and if that was before, if we did it before January 1st, so it could go somewhere and be a snow machine, where somebody would buy it, put it at Walmart.
This June first.
Yeah,
It's coming.
no, the last.
Last.
Yeah. And if we didn't take the offer after January 1st, it was $15,000. So you can see 15,000 versus 30,000, it doesn't really pay to put the money into it. We have the quotes that we got back in December.
I would just think about the new quotes.
Yeah.
I mean, just.
I got new quotes today because they've gone up $5,000 since January. You have that one there.
Yeah.
There's a few financing options on the back.
So it's, I don't want to, a couple months ago, I had given you a pro forma on financing. So you guys would be aware that this is coming down the pike. They're obviously expensive machines. There, I don't know if you want to talk about
Yeah.
the machine.
He gave us two bids. One was for a high lift and one was for the regular, which the regular is the one I'm passing out, which is the one that we're looking for.
This is,
So this one was, the one you just passed out was for a different one?
It's a different loader. The first one was for a high lift, and the second one is actually the one that we want. I don't know why I sent the two.
This is,
As I've been telling you guys for the past year or whatever, we now have 10,870 hours on our loader. It should have been gone at 7,000 hours, but we could still get some money for it. The machine's old. It's had a very hard life. It's not like a loader that's down at B&L's pit that just loads mulch and stone and things like that with one operator. This is 15 different operators in it. And, we need a new machine. It's just, this machine isn't safe right now to take down the road. Like I said, the steering is drifting. We gotta make a decision.
So, as of July 1, we started a public works sinking fund, okay? So you have $90,000 in that sinking fund now. And that's an off-budget account. It will accumulate funds. We put $40,000 in it in the first year. We put $50,000 in it in the next year. You'll probably see another 10 next year. Larry has some needs over there in terms of, what, a backhoe, is the other one?
Yeah, the backhoe is gonna be the next machine that
And
needs
then
replaced.
perhaps a roll-off truck down the line. But in any event, I'd given you a financing option several months ago. There's, if you're so inclined, I think there's several ways to pay for it if you're there. Larry, I think, has come before you before to talk about the need for a loader, maybe even a year ago.
Yeah, this is 2 budget cycles.
Yeah, in the business, he can tell you how long these are kept generally and whatever. So there's 2 ways if you're inclined to consider this, either this meeting or soon. And one of them is to finance it over 3 years. If you're gonna finance it over 3 years, I would suggest you pay for it out of the Public Works sinking fund. So let's call it $50,000 a year. You have $90,000 in there this year. Next year we'll put, let's just call it another 50 or 60 in it. And so there will be money that will continue to go into that fund, and you can pay for this loader in 3 years pretty easily. And if he has a major emergency, he'll still have a little bit of money in that Public Works sinking fund to pay for another piece of equipment. The money is put away, so we could do this easily over 3 years. Pay for it right out of sinking funds. Another way to pay for it is there's $90,000 in the sinking fund right now. You need approximately another 60. We have a capital non-recurring fund. This is a capital item, and it is, you could call equipment at Public Works recurring, but that doesn't mean you couldn't use this money for for this particular event. So out of the capital non-recurring account, if I had to guesstimate a balance in that account, I'd say it's probably in the neighborhood of about $750,000, money that we are putting away for bigger ticket items. One of them may be, by the way, the roof and gutter system on the front of Town Hall. I brought that to you last meeting. I mentioned that there is a leak in the land use office, and if you go outside right now and look at Town Hall, you can see the sag there. So we're gonna have to get an estimate on that. I'm not so sure insurance is gonna cover that. And you need $60,000 out of that account. We haven't spent, I don't think we spent a dime out of that account pretty much, except for maybe mini golf and the seawalls, or we did spend some money the first year we had it, or the first or second year. But we've been very prudent with that fund, and there is money available so that we're not building it into a mill rate, we're not doing that. It's money that we can do this with monies we've set aside. Or we can do it with monies that we're going to set aside over the next 3 years, starting now. And that is something that I've been planning on doing. When we started the capital non-recurring fund 4 years ago, And the Public Works Sinking Fund, 2 years ago. This is exactly why we started it. So,
How much is in the sinking fund right now? The 90 plus?
90, no, just 90. We did 40 one year, we did 50 as of July 1 this year. So you have 90 in there right now. So in
Do
terms
you
of,
have any other equipment that you consider to be critical for replacement this year? I'd like to get one number that we have to deal with and not have a piecemeal approach to it.
I think the backhoe could make another budget season,
It could make what?
another budget season.
So that's the most critical piece.
Yeah, that would be the most critical.
and how much?
That's gonna be about the 140, 150,000.
Same as this, huh?
Yeah. The roll-off truck at the end of this budget season, we put some money into it, and I think we're good for another year or two for that now. We rebuilt all of the hydraulic cylinders that lift the box up onto the truck and stuff. It's one of the major components, so.
Did the Board of Selectmen approve the purchase of this truck, of this loader?
Do we approve it?
Did you approve it?
No, okay, so the mechanism of how this would move forward.
Correct, that's what I'm looking.
Yeah, depending on how we would do this. If you are inclined to, I can't act until I know how you're gonna fund it, because, I'll tell you why, because if we use 60,000 out of the capital non-recurring account, that requires a town meeting, okay? If you're going to do a financing option, it requires your approval, because we're talking about a 3-year financing option. And that would be a Board of Selectmen coming to you and saying, hey, we're gonna do a financing. It doesn't require a town meeting, okay? So I wanna see how you are inclined to move on this. One would require a town meeting. I don't believe the other one does. In fact, I know the other one doesn't. But it will have a non-appropriation clause in it. You're familiar with that from the police vehicles? So if it were a financing agreement, there'd be a non-appropriation clause. So if you didn't make a payment, in theory, they could come and take the payload.
And so, I have a couple of questions. The existing one, so suppose tomorrow morning, a brand new one shows up. Does it make sense to get rid of the existing one, or can it
Yes,
be used?
that machine should be sent up to Petrowski's or wherever we can get it and get out of here. I've replaced 2 of the computers in it, there's 2 left that haven't been replaced, and it's just a matter of time. You know, and like I said, with the list of stuff that's on it, it's really not safe to go down the street right now. Most of our tree down for the last month, we've been using the backhoe, so.
And this one that's spec'd out, is that kind of like, are there any competitors to this? Not only this company that's selling it, but this particular unit? In other words, we got.
Yeah, I mean, Caterpillar.
The Chevy will do.
Yeah, Caterpillar, we can get a price from them, we can get a price from Komatsu. I mean, there's a million manufacturers out there that we can go to. The John Deere, dollar for dollar, is about one of the best machines on the market. And we get it through the NJPA contract or whatever, so.
Larry, what's the mission of the front-end loader versus the mission of the backhaul? What does each do, and why do we need both?
The loader, the engine is in the back of it. It articulates in the middle, makes it very easy to move around and get around places or whatever. It's got a higher lift than what the backhoe does. We're loading triaxles and things on Main Street or whatever when we're moving snow. We do all the brush grinding with the loader. The motor being in the back, you're not driving with the motor in the front and the radiator being exposed to all the brush to get poked through into the radiator. When you lift the bucket, all the dust would come in with it. So the loader is used quite a bit, like you guys have seen in our snow removal, our brush chipping, our leaf composting, where we don't use the backhoe other than to load sand when we're out with the loader during a snowstorm.
What else do you use the backhoe for?
The backhoe is more for going out and putting a new catch basin in front of your house and running pipe. We use it because it can dig. It do have the front bucket, which makes it easy for backfilling and loading trucks or whatever. But you can't operate without one or the other. You need both.
And the loader is almost every weekend at the transfer station, isn't it? With the,
Yeah.
when they push
Pushing up brush pile.
Put the brush pile at the transfer station, the loader's going every weekend, from what or maybe even during the week.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Who's certified to operate both pieces of equipment?
Basically, everybody there is capable of running the
Do you
equipment.
need a minimum license or certification?
There's not much out there for that. I've been looking into that.
And I had a question on the two sheets that you handed out here. I see we have 60 by 60 utility pallet forks listed on both.
Yeah,
Is that
this,
something that you normally use?
this machine is gonna be a tool carrier where the front bucket can come off,
Yep.
where you can put a set of forks on it and move pipe, things like that. And it also is gonna come with a grapple bucket. It's gonna have fingers above the bucket, so you'll be able to go into the brush pile, pick it up, and bring it over to the tub grinder or whatever for chipping. It's gonna take a lot of wear and tear off that machine having that grapple bucket. Right now, we have to climb up on the pile, hook the back of the bucket, and pull the brush down off the pile, which puts a lot of pressure on the pistons that do the lifting on the bucket or whatever. We end up replacing a lot of seals because of those. This will take, the machine will be, in 10 years, will look like it was new compared to what we have now, just from that one item.
And do we keep logbooks in each piece of equipment to show who's using it and how many hours each week goes on each piece of equipment?
No, only during FEMA things that we do that.
That's your number one list of things. As far as the town goes, is there any other capital items we're gonna see coming down the road that take priority over this, or does this take priority over everything else we got done? Because you keep going back to these funds, and I wanna know.
I don't keep going back to any fund.
Go back to this fund, but
What fund?
capital non-recurring.
We've never used it hardly. We haven't used it in 3 years.
Well-
So I don't keep going back to any funds, okay? I put money away, you have put money away on the Board of Finance in a sinking fund for public works, and that's where I'm
So that's
suggesting.
what's- okay, well,
You pay
that's
for
capital non-recurring.
it. For the most, you can't, there's two options. You can pay for it strictly from this over a 3-year financing agreement. That would be money, you'd leave the capital non-recurring fund alone. If you chose to pay for it and said, hey, Carl, we are inclined, I'll tell you my preference. My preference is to finance it over 3 years. I know, maybe not everybody here is a big fan of that. You're probably going to incur, well, you are going to incur some interest payments over 3 years. The reason I prefer that is it leaves some money in the Public Works sinking fund, whereas if we use the 90 flat out, every dime of it, plus 60 from the capital non-recurring fund, you're not gonna have any money in any sinking fund for Public Works until next July 1. So, whereas if we finance it over 3 years, we still have the ability to build that fund a little bit for the next purchase. And in addition to easily paying for this truck, this back loader. The interest rates are still, I looked at the 10-year today. Brad, you can tell me better than anybody, that, the interest rates are still right where they should be. 10-year is still very low. The financing option on this would be very attractive. That would be my personal preference. You guys are the appropriator of funds, so if you choose a different avenue, I'm happy to follow that, and it would require going to town meeting for any appropriation out of the capital non-recurring account. But I prefer the financing option. I think it's a minimal expense to keep the Public Works sinking fund liquid over the next 2 years.
What's the life of the loader?
Life of the loader should be 7,000 hours if you want to get something back for your purchase. Alan Hall, that owns B&L Construction, at 7,000 hours, every piece of equipment he owns is out of there. Well, he's still getting maybe almost half of his money back that he paid for.
How many years is that you're doing?
It all depends how busy the loader's gonna be,
Well, you had that in 1998, you got 10,000, so.
Barry, actually, you asked the question, so are there any other capital, large capital items? I just thought of that. Nothing that I can think of offhand outside of Public Works.
We took care of our school project.
I mean, no like that, capital projects, but in terms of vehicles, the town doesn't have a lot of vehicles. I mean, outside of police and fire, Don Lucas is going to be looking to buy a car. We put some money aside for that. Youth and Family Services had their bigger transportation bus. I don't know how many kids it holds, but
It was like 15 or 16.
that actually broke down recently. I don't know how old that is. They haven't put in a request to replace it. But other than unexpected items like a roof that leaks in a 10-year-old building, or something like that, I will come to you when these things happen. But that's why we built this account. So we don't have to do any special appropriation from our rainy day fund.
Carl, have you checked with the bank that we got the loan for the police cars?
First
To see what-
Niagara.
Yeah, to see what they were.
I haven't updated that pro forma. I did hand out a pro forma about 2 months ago. I haven't updated it. It's gonna be
So this is the 3% proposal.
That's through John Deere.
That was like 1.8 or something like that?
No, it was in the two. It definitely was in the twos. She could get that off to me within 30 minutes once I request it. It won't be 3%. I don't.
What would it be if we put down 45,000? So you had 45 left. What would finance the rest?
Actually, we could do this anyway, because you said 50 would cover the first year of a lease anyway, so.
They've got a 4-year lease here that shows it at $40,000 a year through John Deere at 3%.
I was counting on doing a 3-year.
But that was $7,000 interest.
What's the $7,000?
We're using about $7,000.
Over how many years?
Over the 4 years.
Over 4 years, which,
Less than 5,000 for, if you did 3%.
yeah, which is,
Yeah, 2%, we're gonna cut a third of the rate.
Yeah.
So that's really,
Larry, is that a true figure, associated annual maintenance cost of about $2,400 on this machine that you have currently? Based on what I read here in your request for capital, request for the budget for 2015-16?
Yeah, I have 2,400 for a new machine, yeah.
Well, no, yeah, for the new machine, so
Yeah.
that still holds about
Yes.
$2,400?
Yep.
And what kind of a savings is that per year on the new machine versus the used machine? Any idea on that?
I'd have to go back and look in the records to see
Okay.
what we would save, but I mean, just you can see.
I mean, the grease job, the oil change and stuff, that's all pretty standard, whether it's an old
Yeah.
machine or a new machine?
Yeah.
Okay.
The big thing is, like tires. They're $10,000 for 4 new tires, are $2,500 each. If we rip a tire or something like that that's not seen, that can make it go up. But
What's the first major maintenance cost on a new machine?
it's actually not too bad. The first maintenance will just be an oil change, and then the second maintenance will be doing adjusting the valves, things like that.
I mean, like
They won't be.
5 months out, 6 months out?
Well, it depends on how
How
fast.
much usage?
Yeah, we put the hours on it.
I'll make a motion, we table this for 2 weeks, and meantime, we can check out the interest rate to see what.
I can get you that tomorrow.
Is there a second?
All right, so why don't I, in your discussion here, why don't I get you pro forma? I'll put together perhaps a couple different options in terms of money down, and we'll look at that, and then maybe 2 weeks from now, okay?
When would you see, just when would you see a new machine if you got these?
This machine that he priced out, they have in stock.
Okay.
They have in stock.
Because they're driving on the door tomorrow, right?
Larry, you give me the stock number of which one that you are really looking at?
Most expensive.
Yeah, it's the,
One that's more-
155.
yeah, it's number 25-132.
And is there any warranty on this?
There is warranties that go with it.
For hours or
Yeah.
something? And Clark is the best,
They're the only dealer in the state. They're in Franklin and they're also in Wallingford.
Do they deal with the other brands?
No, John Deere is all they carry. The Caterpillar is up in Newington or whatever, H.O. Penn.
Is there any reason why you went to this one versus the other one? Both they're easy to get.
The state has a cat loader that they just bought, and they're not happy with it. Alan Hall, I talked to his loader operator over there where they sell the mulch. He had a John Deere. They traded it in, they bought a Komatsu, and the operator hates it. Said the other machine was way better, more power.
That's a big wrench.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, so mark the calendar for 2 weeks.
I'll get you, I'll present a couple different options to you in 2 weeks, in terms of money down and, is it the inclination, it's my inclination not to go more than 3 years on a financing because we have no need to, because we have the funds available. So I don't wanna look at a 5-year lease, or a 5-year financing, yeah. Too much interest, that's my inclination.
Larry,
so.
can you get a schedule of what it would cost to service that for, I don't know how they do the schedule, but you like a car they usually do a
Yeah, well,
$20,000.
like I said, when I turned in the capital thing, I put $2,400 for maintenance, that's what they told me up there, but
I'd like to see how it runs
Okay.
for over many years. All right.
All right. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Treasurer report?
Yes, you have the report. Everyone have one? Okay. As you know, we finished the fiscal year 2014-2015 on June 30th. What this represents is the report of that fiscal year on a cash basis. That means that there are still payables and receivables to come that will end up being in the fiscal year's financial statements. But this is your cash report at the end of that year, okay? Now, if you look at the expenditures to June 30th, you'll see that the general government side is about $500,000 less than budget. That's good. It does not have the payables in it. As you know, over the next 2 months, Lisa and I will be making sure that all the payables are included in 14-15. But traditionally, our payables have been down near $250,000. Last year was the highest I've ever seen them, and they went up to $380,000. But I think no matter what, we're going to end up with a surplus in the general government expenditures of at least $100,000. The bonded indebtedness is over by about $42,000 because we had to make an accrued interest payment for the preserve bond, and of course that was not in our original budget. We completed the carryover expenses for roads and sidewalks during the year. They weren't part of the budget, but they will affect the fund balance on the general fund. And Board of Education, if you'll notice, I've already put some of their expenses against the special ed revenue that we had. I balanced that out. But Board of Ed still has nearly $500,000 themselves to absorb their accounts payable. They'll come in with those during the next month. And traditionally, the Board of Education comes out very close to their budget. So on the expenditure side total, I expect that we'll be somewhere on the order of $100,000 surplus.
Bob, excuse me.
Sure.
Is the $500K for the Board of Ed, is that the normal rate of expendables that they have, or is that a high number?
You mean the fact that they're that far under at this point in time?
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to say what the expected number is, because the Board of Ed they run a purchase order system, and it's more associated with when they get certain expenditures sent over to us to include them. I don't have an expected number for Board of Ed.
But if they use the purchase order system, wouldn't they have a better handle on the encumbrances?
Well, they probably do, and
They don't give you the
if there's
number?
anyone was here, I'd ask them, but they have not given me that number, that's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
We could probably pull this, I probably have this report from last year on my desk. We'd probably pull it.
Well,
Yeah.
but last year they had a very high
Okay.
rate of payables that wasn't normal. Remember, and they also came through in the end with a surplus of $24,000, which was also not normal.
Right.
So, so I'm not sure where they will come in, but the best expectation is that they'll break even approximately.
Thank you.
On the revenue side, we're doing very well. We've collected all the taxes that we expected to collect currently, and we have almost $200,000 in back taxes that have been collected more than we expected. The state of Connecticut, we are very close to being on budget. Local revenues, we're about $50,000 over what we expected. A lot of that due to our new mini golf course. So when I look at the whole thing, I'm looking at a couple $100,000 in revenue surplus and maybe $100 in the expenditure side. So we're talking about an expected a budget surplus of around $300,000. And that's kind of not surprising. That's a little less than 1% of our budget. That's just where we try to manage it. We don't want any deficit, but we also don't want to have more than 1% left over either. So I'm very pleased with where it stands right now. In addition, we now know from the police chief that we're going to be getting some storm-related receivables that we're going to be able to add back now, and that will help our fund balance. Finally, taxes. You know, we got our taxes bills out quickly this year, and that new system with the new charter, it says we will do our referendum in early May, is really working for us this year. By June 30th, we already had paid in advance for the new fiscal year over $5.5 million. So we're in good shape.
Any questions for Bob?
How much more money did you add in the fund balance for the FEMA tax, the money we just got back? How much more money did you, what was the number of that?
I believe the number is somewhere around $500,000 that you're getting back. But some of that has to go to taking away negative balances on off-budget accounts where we spent money in the first place. So how much ends up going to our fund balance, I haven't calculated yet.
You might be able to-
Yeah.
Bob, are all these line items pretty much where they'll end up, you think? Or
Well, when the payables are going to be added to those, so, I don't know, do you have a comment you'd like to make on where the certain budgets are gonna end up?
No,
Okay.
I don't. I hesitate to comment on it after a little bit of the experience last year. I want to see how it plays out over the next month.
I was gonna say that's generally mid-August, second meeting. in
We'll have a
August.
darn good idea by the end of this month.
Yes.
I would think.
Although, you know, we do take the 60-day period.
Yep.
Lisa and I usually do it near the end of August. We'll finalize all our payables, and then we'll know for sure at that point.
We really tried to shake the trees this year to get bills in, invoices in, so they wouldn't be dragging too long. They inevitably do. For instance, I can give you a good example. I was looking at my reports today, and water. We still have I counted the amount of water bills that we paid this year, 10 so far. So there's $90,000 left in that account. There's probably about $80,000 in expenditures. Okay? Yep. So there's probably one that may have even come through this week and we'll get, yeah, it's just the nature of the beast, the way the bills come in. So I'd rather wait and see. I am pleased also where we are from an expenditure point of view. The revenues, have been good the last couple of years, and but from an expenditure point of view, I really tried to make extra effort this year to get that out there and say, hold to your budgets as much as possible. And you guys saw that, I think, in memos that crossed your desk. So we'll see. We'll see, we'll have a better read on it a month from now. It's your first meeting in August. But we're in good shape. And between the money, between any surplus funds that we have this year, plus any of these FEMA funds, you're looking at a pretty significant deposit into the undesignated fund balance.
Yeah, that would be nice.
And Bob will have a better read on that for you. We can tell you percentage-wise where it is in about 2 months,
Correct.
probably. We were just under 7%.
Mhm.
And so, if we can add somewhere in the neighborhood of 500,000 to 700,000 based on the FEMA funds and any surplus money, that'll go a long ways towards putting us where we should be.
Correct.
Not that we're looking to bond anytime soon, it's just good to know.
Any other questions for Bob? All right, thank you. Selectmen's report?
Thank you. So I do just talk about that. I don't know that we talked exact numbers, and stop me if I'm wrong on these numbers, but it appears that we received approximately $595,000 from FEMA for, looks like 2 different projects. What's the 100,000 was for what?
The beach repairs and some of Saybrook Point, the pavilion repairs, the fencing.
Fencing, the new fence at the seawall, and then the other one was primarily the seawalls, was the larger seawalls, is that correct?
Recreational areas.
Recreational areas, AKA seawalls, but listen, I sent to this board a letter, and I thought, when I received this money, this is a big deal. It's a big deal. There's no other way to say it. To receive, so Hurricane Sandy, Tropical Storm Sandy, was October of 12. It's July of 15. And it takes perseverance and a lot of work to get reimbursed on these items. And so I sent a letter to the chief of police thanking him for his efforts in recouping those funds, because it makes a difference to the town and to the financial health of the town in a big way. When you're talking a rainy day fund, an undesignated fund balance of a couple to $3 million, and you're talking $600,000 that's a lot of money. That's a big percentage of your undesignated fund balance. So credit where credit is due, and a lot of work goes into that, and that you saw my letter to the chief of police for his efforts, and I thanked him for that, and I just want you to be aware of that. But that's a big deal, big deal, I think, to the town, and it takes a long time. So I got something across my desk. Did you see one of the last bills that was passed in the legislature was if a police officer leaves within 2 years, I think it is, a municipality shall be reimbursed 50% of the initial cost of certification for Police Officer Standards and Training Council of police officers when they're hired by another law enforcement entity within 2 years. So I know this topic has come up at the Board of Finance in the past, saying if a cop leaves and we've trained him and he goes to another force, why can't we get that money back? And this crossed my desk yesterday as something that was recently became law. I think it was in the implementer on June 30th. So, you guys can read that, pass it around. The WPCA, not every department has done this, but they reported to me that they'll be 25,000 under budget this year, and that's gonna obviously contribute to some of the numbers Bob was talking about. But there was also a letter that was recently sent to DEEP from Steve Mongillo, talking about what is going on with the WPCA right now. And I thought I would give this board an update. I know you may want to meet with the WPCA sometime this summer. But construction of 190 conventional septic upgrades in 2015, so this year, is planned in the areas of Meadowood, Ingham Hill, and Maple Avenue North. 7 contracts have been developed to complete this work. And all this construction is expected to be completed in 2015. So you should know that at the end of this year, you're looking at about over 700 properties that will have been addressed, which is a real milestone in this program. It is moving at a good pace. There are still 900 properties on the backside of this. However, as we get there, some of them drop out, some of them are code compliant. So, I think the end number is going to be 1,1600. So you're getting to the point where you're almost halfway done. I have information on that for you if you'd like to review this, or I can email this to you. But this was a letter in 2016. Conventional upgrades are going to be in Indiantown, another 70 properties. And then also in Saybrook Manor, another 123 properties, conventional. So another 200 properties conventional next year. And if there's any kind of a community system, you're going to be talking about 300 to 400 properties. So you get the numbers come up very quickly as you start talking about the next couple of years. Listen, it's a difficult program, it's a complex program, it's not popular, but we are under a court order to implement it, and we are implementing it, and a lot of work is going into it. And I thought that was an interesting letter update that crossed my desk from the WPCA manager to the DEP, and I'll share that with you by email if you'd like. Another item that has crossed my desk in the last 2 days is North Main Street, as you know, is undergoing a transformation. You're having 199 parking spaces built. There may be some housing that is going to get started soon. And next year, the town is completely rebuilding North Main Street with a $1 million federal grant. So that if you're walking, you can have safe travel from the train station to Main Street. You're gonna have lights and sidewalks. Very important. I get a lot of people calling me saying it is hazardous to walk on North Main Street. As you would imagine, it'll also protect our cemetery, historic cemetery. But in addition to that, Amtrak is going to be upgrading their entire building there, the whole train station itself, where you buy tickets, and their stormwater system is going to get upgraded. So they're, with federal money, Amtrak obviously is going to be doing a lot of work there over the next year on their own building. So, 2 years from now, it's going to be a different place down there. It's going to be, I think, quite a neat little hub that people are going to want to commute out of, and I think that will be good for Main Street, obviously. A couple other things. I don't know if any of you have been by the library in the last week. You're laughing. Why are you laughing? I want to know why you're laughing. What?
Some artwork?
No. No.
That's part of it.
we've done, why are you laughing? Are you,
I'm watching the artwork, the bug.
oh, the artwork, I have nothing to do with the artwork. Maybe I should have something to do with it, but I don't. I've gotten a lot of phone calls over the last 2 years saying the library looks lousy, the grounds look lousy. And we went in there over the last week, hired a subcontractor to go in, and so you can now go to the library and it looks awesome, okay? And I get calls from people just saying, you know, it's such a beautiful building, why isn't it better taken care of? So we're gonna take care of that building from here on out, and we cut down a massive pine tree right in the front that was all over the roof. I mean, it was just silly that it was there. And completely re-landscaped the front and the back. So go to the library, it looks a lot different. The Economic Development Commission is also working very hard on Mariners Way. And the only reason I bring this up is they are drafting new text for zoning. They're drafting new zoning regulations for Mariners Way. It's going to be its own zone to try to spur development out there, okay? And that is in addition to what the town is doing in seeking out grants to get the Brownfields Assessment Grant that has been run through this board, and the Making Places Grant of the building out by between the bridges. So I saw a draft of the text. Obviously, they're trying to aim it for marine use. They are allowing for larger buildings, but any large building you build has to be a certain amount of feet back from the road. So you can't have a large building right on the road. You can have smaller buildings on the road, but any large building has to be farther back. So they're trying to create a little bit of a boulevard feel on Route 1 East. But they are making headway. They hope to get to the zoning commission with draft text in January. And you know, the idea is to create some interest out there. That's been one of my projects for 4 years now, is to create a little bit more tax revenue out of a very underutilized area of town. Not to develop it willy-nilly, but to have very careful, planned, smart development that will really enhance Old Saybrook. So they're doing a great job. Economic Development Commission doing a great job working on that. One other item, it didn't make it to you, but I'm gonna have you put it on your agenda for your next meeting. It is a carryover from the land use department. Give me a minute. Carryover from the land use department. They have $2,000 left, and it's not even in the land use department. The Historic District Commission. I think their entire budget is about $4,000. They want to carry over $2,000 because they want to do some plantings by the North Cove guardrail, okay? To beautify that area a little bit, as well as they're worried about erosion of that bank there. So I'll put that on your agenda next time, okay? But it would be a carryover. So that's it. That's just, I know you got some other things on your agenda. I just thought I'd hit some bigger picture items.
Any questions for Carl? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So, speaking of carryovers, the next item on the agenda says Marine Patrol. It should say Marine Patrol carryover, because there was a request to carry over $16,400.
$994.85.
Say that again?
$16,994.85.
From this previous year's budget into 15-16 budget. So it's up to the Board of Finance to vote on that. the carry forward. So, if anyone has any comment from the Marine Patrol Division or the selectmen?
No, it's a carryover request. There's another carryover request, like I said, they're essentially the same thing. If there is a carryover voted on by this board, voted on positively, usually this board says, what's it for? Well, you know, we've had carryovers in the past. We've done the Elm Street paving. We carried it over for 3 years. So what's it for? It's clearly for a Marine Patrol asset. So if you choose to carry it over, it would result in a lease, that 3-month lease, that the Board of Selectmen would probably follow up with next week. But there's no funds to do that, so I would seek Board of Finance, or the
So,
chief is
but
selecting.
very technically or realistically, what it's used for is up to you. It's not up to us.
No, I think the carryover, you would carry it over, but let's not beat around the bush.
No, right.
Yeah,
But
it's going to be used, that's what it would be used for.
Well, my
If
point is not a decision as to what it's used for.
No, but the Board of Finance usually would inquire what it's
Right.
for. But yes, you would just carry over the funds, yes, that's all you're doing.
Point of information.
Yes.
Does the Board of Selectmen have to vote on a carryover before it reaches? the Board
We've
of
never
Finance?
done that.
So,
Yeah, no.
we've never done that.
No.
Is that the correct procedure? I'm asking.
I would say it is absolutely the correct procedure for this board to determine whether something should be carried over as requested by a specific department. Bob, do you have an opinion on that, in terms of a carryover?
I agree with you that that is the procedure. I always thought that it would be useful for the Board of Selectmen to make a recommendation to that effect.
Yeah,
I don't think it's required to.
yeah.
So point of order, should we be acting on it?
Well, it's not required. Nobody thinks it, Bob said he doesn't think it's required. It's a carryover.
It's not a carryover.
It's not?
No, because it wasn't committed to anything that you're gonna pay next year. The road was committed.
That's an encumbrance.
All right, same thing. This is a surplus in the budget, it's not a carryover.
You're right, you're right. It's a surplus in the budget that is being requested as a carryover. That's for a specific reason.
Yeah.
We went through this before, there's encumbrances and there's carryovers. The encumbrances are, there was a bill that hit the desk on June 29th and wasn't paid until after, that's an encumbrance. This is not an encumbrance. You're right, but it's a carry forward.
If it's not an encumbrance, what exactly is it? It seems to me it would be a surplus to his account.
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
So if it's a surplus, then the decision, I think, on the surplus would be in the hands of the Board of Finance, I would think.
It's essentially a surplus
Yeah.
in that
Is
account.
that right?
That's correct. And unless I'm wrong, the request from the department head was to carry that surplus over into this year.
Yes.
No more.
That was in the letter that was sent out.
Carryovers have to come from surpluses.
It is a surplus.
They have to come from
Yeah.
surpluses.
I guess the question is, what are we carrying over for?
So you can ask that question. The request is to carry over monies so a patrol boat can be leased. So
Let's have some details.
The last time you were gonna lease a boat, you said you weren't gonna sign a lease. Now you're gonna sign a lease.
that was all. I'm not signing a lease unless there's money appropriated by the Board of Finance, okay? So, Brad, you asked for, what do you want to know, the boat?
Well, I want to know, what are we talking about leasing?
Chief, or Jeff, or officer?
Anyone?
First of all, does everyone, good evening, by the way. Does everyone have a copy of my letter that was sent to you by the first selectman? And does anyone need a copy tonight that details the request? Want a copy, sir? So the specific request that was detailed by the first selectman is to carry over the surplus funds of $16,994.85 to be put towards leasing a Marine Patrol asset for the summer months of this year. If you remember the cost of the lease that we've detailed for you, remember we handed these books out, these were all delivered to you. And for the last several Board of Finance meetings, we've been talking about different options in this packet, which includes the lease. I detailed for you in my letter that there is a gap of the $405.15 that, you know, if that couldn't be found anywhere else, I'd be more than happy to make a personal donation to make sure that we could have Marine Patrol this year. Look, this has been going on a while. It clearly attracts a crowd, which is fantastic that people are this interested. Each one of you at some point or another has said that you believe that we should have Marine Patrol. The fact of the matter is this. Unless these carryover funds are approved, we're not going to have a Marine Patrol this year. And as I have detailed, as I've said to this board and many other boards, and I've detailed in writing to make sure that everyone is very clear with my sentiment, and I will read it out loud in front of the crowd and so that the camera can pick up what I have to say. In the last paragraph of the letter, it clearly reads, and let me actually give a copy of the letter to Ms. Coffey so she has the exact quote for the Harbor News. It says, "The boating season has begun, and it is my opinion that without Marine Patrol, our waterways are not as safe as they could be. It is also my opinion that without Marine Patrol, the town of Old Saybrook is placing the marine community, our public safety professionals, and marine property at risk. I told you I think this is important. I still believe it's important. I appear in front of this board many times talking to you on many matters concerning the safety of our public and the public safety community. Brad, all the details on the lease are in the book.
So it's the same lease, only it's 3 months?
The same exact thing. We've met with the town attorney. The town attorney has reviewed the lease. I guess the lease is called a charter lease. Leasing a boat, that's the name of it. We kind of got a boilerplate lease from the gentleman who's willing to lease us the asset. Attorney Cronin has made some notations that I'm sure will be negotiated. However, and this makes sense, the business owner is not willing to have his attorney spend any more billable hours on the issue until he gets some sort of commitment from the town of Old Saybrook. But they are certainly details that we believe that can be worked out. We've spoken with our insurance carrier. Our insurance carrier insures us. Actually, we had her on speakerphone so the town attorney could hear her, that the vessel will be able to be insured properly.
Chief, the 16,000 is just for the lease. What about signage? What about, you know, the other stuff? I'm not a boater. Radios, pontoons?
Neither am I, John, but I have to tell you, I've learned a lot about boating. So the 17.4 is for the lease. Everything else that would need to be done to the vessel would come out of our normal operating budget. So I don't expect any overages in the normal operating budget that was approved by the voters for the 15-16 fiscal year.
So you can outfit this boat?
Yes, with the existing monies.
Available funds?
Correct.
That's
There have been many people that have stepped up to donate some time and or materials to ensure that we have a Marine Patrol for the season. So we're going to take those folks up on their offer to make sure that this boat can get in the water as quick as possible. We're obviously post 4th of July. So while I know no one likes hearing this, time is of the essence on this issue, which is why my letter requests action. So the matter is entirely in your hands.
So again, as far as the Board of Finance is concerned, if there were to be a motion, it would be a motion to carry over those funds, that 16,000, just under $17,000.
I think there's a lot more answers. We haven't had a boat in the water now, up till now. I went by the bridge and DEP's there, you know, watching the boats going in, done a lot of things. Wouldn't it be more prudent to take this money plus what's left in the budget and look at a boat that you're gonna purchase, rather than to just throw $16,000 out there again? I also, how are you gonna man this boat? How are we gonna man this boat? How many guys are you gonna put on it? How many days are you gonna put on it? There's no details. And I'm tired of putting half-baked proposals through that we get a little piece of it and we really don't know what's going on. Like the field, like all the other things, that we don't get a full swing of it, we end up with problems. And this is just another one. This has been handled wrong from the beginning. It's been going down this road, and we keep pushing and pushing and pushing. Let's stop back. What is Marine Patrol about? What's their mission? Who should be handling it? How should we coordinate with the other DEPs and the, the Marine Patrols out there? I don't understand any of that, because it hasn't been brought before us. How many incidents have we had in the last 5 years? We never get those answers. And so now we're just gonna say, let's take this 16,000 and let's put it in there and let's lease a boat. And I'm not for it, for that reason. I wanna see a full plan. I'm tired of this half-plan stuff. We get half of it, we get a thing, and we're gonna make a decision right now. Had we had time to look at things, had the boat been surveyed before we got, a lot of things could have been different, but it wasn't handled. So here we are again, last minute Charlie gonna jam it down the Board of Finance's throat, and I'm not for it.
So if I could respond to that, Mr. Chairman. So I take a little offense to last minute Charlie. This has been an issue that has come before the Board of Finance for several years, and I certainly don't want to go down the path of the history of the grant, the survey, and all that. The issue is this: do I wish we were in this position? I do not. You asked for a plan. I've been asking for a plan for many years now, and every time I've been told to engage into an action that was part of a plan, it was turned out not to be somebody else's plan. The issue is this: we need a Marine Patrol asset on the water. You ask, how will it operate? How will it be manned? It'll be manned the same way it was manned last year and the year before, in accordance with the operating budget that is submitted to this board, prior to your board, submitted to the Board of Selectmen, and then eventually voted on by the voters of the town of Old Saybrook. There'll be no change. The thing that I'm missing to implement Marine Patrol in accordance with the fiscal document that was approved by our citizens is a boat. I don't want to lease a boat, but I need a boat to satisfy the mission, to do what the taxpayers have said we want you to do in your operating budget. We tell them in the operating budget that we're going to patrol the waterways of the town of Old Saybrook. And we're going to do it by spending this much money in personnel, this much money in fuel, this much money in dockage. I can't do any of that because I don't have an asset. So I have been desperately trying to find a way to bring an asset to the table so we can use it to just do our job. Do I wish we didn't have to lease one? Of course. Do I wish that the grant was approved? I do. Do I wish I could go back in time and change a lot of different things? I'm sure we all would. But the issue before us tonight is this. It's the carryover of funds. I've requested in writing and now in person in front of the board to carry over funds. I've done it before as your police chief, as your emergency management director. We've carried over funds to buy cots for our shelter. We've carried over funds to buy a newer model police car. What I'm looking to do is carry over funds so then I can appear in front of the Board of Selectmen and discuss the lease with them. I'm sure the first selectman is not going to sign a lease that the town attorney doesn't say and our insurance carrier doesn't say, this is okay for you to sign. There's still work that needs to be done, but we are now in the height of the marine season. So I'm not trying to jam anything down your throat. In fact, we've been talking about this when it was, a lot of snow was still on the ground, very pre-marine season. I'm sad that it's after July 4th. I'm sad that we don't have an asset in the water, but this is the best thing I can do. We have leftover money because clearly we weren't in the water the second half of the season. That's why there's a surplus. And I've tried to match the difference with my own personal dollars to show you how important this is. Not to me, but to the town of Old Saybrook. Barry, you started out as a police officer in Old Saybrook. I've been a police officer for a long time. My life's work is the safety of the public and the public safety community. I'm passionate about these things, and I'm missing a segment of our population. I'm not properly policing the marine community. And what I need to do that is a boat, and this is my last resort. So, as I said before, and it's not to put pressure on you, but in reality, this is the matter that's in front of the Board of Finance, and it is the 6 of you that are present tonight, it's your decision. If you carry over the funds, we'll ask the Board of Selectmen to sign a lease. If you don't carry over the funds, there's no money for a lease, and there will be no Marine Patrol.
Let's put a motion, I don't know if you're inclined to
Are
put
there
a
any
motion on the
questions for
table
the chief
in that way.
or Carl or anyone?
Well, I would, the shoreline community, I do believe we should have a vote. But I also agree with Barry that, and I think the frustration is that we don't have any data to support the position of the Marine Patrol. And if I were to make a motion, I would kind of agree to approve the 16,000, but without any further data, on the mission of the Marine Patrol, I would not want to approve the purchase of any boats going forward. And And I think that would be a fair way to approach the whole situation.
Can I speak to John's comment? Mr. O'Brien, I completely agree with you. And as you know, and as you've seen communication in writing to the First Selectman, I have suggested that a full study committee be formed to study Marine Patrol and figure out what type of asset that we need going forward. This money, if you appropriate it today, if you choose to carry it over to the Board of Selectmen, gets me through this season. But we do need a long-term plan, and I hear a lot of commitment from a lot of people, not only at this table, not only at Carl's table, but in the community, to sit down and have those conversations. I am open to a variety of ideas, as long as everybody in the room is willing to listen to those who have technical proficiency in the industry. I think that's very important. I think we should fact find, we can review all our stats, we can talk about quantifying data, what does it mean, how do you interpret it? Let's do all of that. I think that takes more time than just tonight. So thank you very much for your comments.
I don't like, I think that we need I think the role of Marine Patrol is, we do need something. What it is, again, we don't know, and I don't like just throwing $17,000 just because it's surplus money towards a lease that we still haven't really identified what really is the mission. What, we have 2 months left. DEP, Coast Guard, Old Line, people have been out there and patrolling, and so far so good. And we have a rescue boat, we have a fire boat. I think it's a waste of money, and I really don't like the precedent that we're setting, that's saying, okay, great, Marine Harbor or even Historic Society, great, you have a surplus, let's carry it over for this. Well, some things just need to be factored in, and we need to move on. And we don't have the numbers of incidents we've asked for. I've asked for several months. I know people were asking a town meeting back in January, I think it was, when they had the town meeting on this. And we still haven't had them. I can't support it.
Any other comments?
With the $17,000, if it's carried over, combined with the other money put towards a lease, which doesn't involve a lot of the equipment and/or training of, let's say, 35 officers that was previously mentioned in the federal grant boat, and/or a computer on board, a flare unit, etc. Are we still going to be looking for the 15-16 budget to be expended on those particular items that were mentioned in the federal grant? Or are we just looking for a basic boat that will provide some services for the marine community?
So we don't expect to overexpend our 15-16 operating budget. So the lease of this vessel will get us through the first half of the marine season. What happens in 2016 is still up to this board, his board, a study committee, whomever is going to make that decision. What we're looking for is just short term. To the things that you're asking about, no additional equipment will be purchased. Training will happen either on duty or within existing budget dollars. So we're not expecting an overage due to the lease. The lease is simply the asset. So we can do everything that you want. Breck, just to your points real quick, I did bring some quick stats, but again, I think until we sit down and talk about quantifying them and what does that mean to different people, for example, over a 5-year period, there's been 45 marine rescues, there's been 16 accidents, 33 miscellaneous assists. Someone's going to say, what's a miscellaneous assist? Well, it could be 33 different types of things, and we need to talk about what that actually means. Our goal in law enforcement is actually the generation of voluntary compliance, and we do that by presence. So to your comment of things have worked out well so far this year, they haven't. There have been several incidents where there has been conflict in the water that a local police asset would have been beneficial even to our own fire department that was put in a very precarious situation. Carl, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'd love for you to speak to that or maybe speak to some of the comments that you're getting from some of the business owners. I think it's important for the Board of Finance to hear that, and especially Breck, who made those comments.
Well, I've heard from really one marina owner who feels it's going to impact his business. What's that?
Anyone?
Well, a marine owner who says, I feel like it's going to impact my business. But
Does he dock our boat?
yes.
So, here we go.
All right. But I'm just telling you, okay, so let's,
So let's forget, that's a.
well, then dismiss it, okay? So the other.
He's
the
a
other-
taxpayer though, Brett. I mean, he's a
Yeah,
significant
he
taxpayer.
also gets insurance breaks because he has your boat there, the
All right,
fire boat.
so the other,
Come on.
I had a discussion with Jeff True, who described an incident to me, and take this for what it's worth. I mean, and Jeff came in and he said there was a Sea-Doo accident where they went out there and they were trying to rescue a guy who was in the water. And they said, come on, get in the boat, you're clearly injured. And the guy was in the water, but he wouldn't get in the boat. And so the fire department waited for him to make sure he was okay, and they followed him a while until he was safe, either on someone else, a private boat or on land, because they weren't sure if he was gonna go under. And Jeff described it to me as if a police officer was there, we could have made him get off the Sea-Doo. We weren't sure how badly injured he was, so we wanted to stay there in case he went under. But if he goes under at that point, we're in jeopardy. Because now we have to dive into a river with currents and, you know, so those are some of, those are, I haven't heard a lot of comments, I haven't, but those are two that I've heard, okay? One of them is the fire department feels like they are being put in jeopardy by not having a law enforcement presence there to make an arrest, to pull someone, say, no, you get on this boat. The fire department doesn't do that. So,
One concern I have is personnel. How many officers are you down now for staff?
How many are we down right now?
Yeah.
2 positions, that's soon to be 1 though. I have no staffing concerns for Marine Patrol.
Chief, is that staffed at regular hours or time and a half hours?
It actually depends on the police officer's work week, but it's all done in accordance with their bargaining unit agreement. So some weeks they work less than 40 hours, in which case any extra hours they make straight time. Any hours after 40 hours by contract and by federal law, they make time and a half. So we'll do our best to schedule in accordance with that. Not every officer is available to work Marine Patrol. The reason why everyone is acclimated to the boat is in case a boat handler that's responsible for operating the boat needs to take a police officer to an incident on the water, like a domestic on a boat on a non-patrol day. Our patrol days, oddly enough, are when these incidents have been happening, so a normal patrol day would have been the same hour that the jet ski accident happened. A normal patrol day would have been that time when that boat was capsized and the 3 people were stuck in the water underneath the Ballman Bridge for half an hour before a towing service came and rescued them. So those were normal patrol operations and normal patrol patterns that, you know, one would think we would have been able to be there for and, you know, mitigate those situations a little bit sooner.
And the number of hours that you have to service, is it 350, which was the number of hours on that engine that was in your report, or is it higher?
Say that again, John, I'm sorry.
What are the number of hours that you would be on patrol? Is it 350 that was in that report, or is the number higher?
It's a little higher, because obviously we're not gonna be on the boat immediately, and there's time when we dock it and clean it up, so the patrol hours are a little bit higher. The way we calculate patrol hours are basically the weekends that we're on patrol and the holidays. So it's a fixed number based on where the holidays fall and the weekends fall.
And don't forget, this is an abbreviated season, so we would have been in the water end of April and May, in June, and certainly the July 4th weekend, we haven't done any of that. So more than likely, personnel-wise, we'll see a surplus at the end of June 30th, 2016, because we have not patrolled and used man hours out of our personnel budget in April, May, and June, and the beginning of July.
Thank you.
good motion. Yeah.
Is there a motion to carry forward $16,994.85 from the Marine Patrol 2014-2015 budget surplus? I will make that motion. Is there a second? No second. Motion fails.
I'd like to make a motion. The same way I approached it was approving the 694.
Whatever it is,
With the proviso that going forward, we will not purchase any boat unless we have all the data requested by the Board of Finance.
Purchase or lease?
Purchase. This is, I would approve the 16,964 for the leasing of a boat now, with the proviso that going forward, we do not purchase any boat without the provision of providing all the data requested to that boat by the Board of Finance.
Is there a second? I'll second that. Any discussion? You all right?
I'm good with this.
doing a great job.
And you got the number right?
Yeah, I got it right here.
16,994.
Okay.
It's in the document.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. No discussion. Is there, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yay.
Okay.
Motion fails.
All right.
All right. All right, next item is public comment. Is there any public comment? Yes, ma'am?
Hi, I'd like to thank the Board of Finance for taking the action that you have. I really believe, I have studied the annual reports up to 2008. Every year, the citations, the assists, and everything were listed in the annual reports. The boating community, as a person who's lived on the Connecticut River since 1972, the traffic on the Connecticut River, because that's my backyard, has significantly declined. And I think in this time when people are struggling and they have, a lot of people are still recovering from the recession, I think this isn't the time to spend money needlessly. And yes, you might need a boat, but I'm sure that a regional thing, you've got DEP here, you've got the Coast Guard, you've got the Coast Guard Auxiliary, Westbrook has a boat. There's no reason that there can't be a shared response from everybody. And I really think where you went to the harbor management, and the harbor management has $250,000, maybe the whole thing with the thing should be done by the harbor management commission, and maybe we won't be in these kind of situations, because I really think the taxpayers are the ones that are paying the bills here, and I'm really glad that they were finally heard.
We have a public comment?
Mr. Chairman, it's a benign comment, but it would be nice if members had name placards in front of them. I don't see you all every day. You know, when they come in, it's somewhat difficult to associate a face with a name reading the paper. Just as I say, it's a benign comment, but I think it's useful.
And we do have that, however, with turnover on the board, they haven't, new members haven't been, but you're right, I agree. Any other public comment?
I didn't hear any discussion, credible discussion, about the use of the fireboat by the police department. And I'd like to point out, a month ago, I saw the old line boat out on the water, and it's a very small vessel, and it had both a police officer and a fire officer on it. So why couldn't we do the same thing? You know, if we got a boat, you want to put a boat on the water, get the keys from the fire chief and have him turn it over to an operating group that combines both the department's efforts on the water. And that'll solve the problem. You won't spend $15,000 in the next month or so.
Can I have your name, sir?
Yeah, it's George Wall. I live on Ferry Road.
Thank you.
Yeah, it just hasn't, I've mentioned it a couple times, and it just doesn't seem like anybody can say, we've had a meeting between the police chief and the fire chief, and we've worked out our differences, or we've come to an understanding. This is sort of like negotiating the Iranian nuclear. It's not. It's very simple. There's a boat and there's water and there's a police department and a fire department that can share the time on the water and benefit the whole town as a result of that. Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Yes, sir.
It's probably appropriate to comment at the time that this whole argument, which has been going on for 9 months now, is missing the point of why people voted no for this whole project. It isn't just a vote. It's about the size and the effectiveness of the police department and its cost. And it needs to be borne in mind that you ask anybody about a town, we have too big a police force, it's 50%, it's costing 50% more than it costs in Old Lyme, which is the same size town. We have all sorts of excuses why it's more expensive, but in reality, we should be able to have a little police boat, absorb it within the police department, have no more costs, get rid of some of the cars because you don't need them all. We're in a situation where people won't come into this town now because the consistency of red and blue lights all the time, they just say it's just not safe anymore. So bearing in mind, the technical argument for police boats, fine, but look at the whole picture and see if we actually need all the police cars on the road at the same time as the boats in the water, or maybe we could count the boat as one of the police cars and staff it accordingly. Just one big one.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I too would like to thank you for not proceeding with the motion tonight. First off, first thing that I heard was a treasurer's report that said we'll be 2 months down the road before we really know the final amounts that are left in the accounts. We only have the word of the chief that right now we have $16,000 left in that account with no final accounting from our treasurer. We don't know that we have that money. What is to? So I am thankful that we have not spent money. And yes, I think we've had very good points made that we need to examine the mission and what are we supposed to be doing and what things do we already have that fulfill that mission and what things do we need to fulfill that mission. Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, thank you. Carl, do you want to talk about this memo?
What's the date, meeting, yeah, John handed it out.
I handed out a memo, with the subcommittee exceeding approved budgets. And it was done in September 18th, 2007. Carl was the chairman, that the Board of Finance approved this measure. And I'll just read the second paragraph. The budget approved for any fiscal year or any approved supplemental appropriation for each department shall not be exceeded without prior approval of the Board of Finance and if necessary, the town meeting. Now, I've been on the board since 2007, and I have to say that we really only approach this issue on an annual basis and very, very timidly, I might say. Going forward, I think it would be in our best interest as a board to look at this on a quarterly basis so that everybody is in tune with what the final outcome may be. And people will get into the habit of watching that budget a little more closely than they have in the past, instead of waiting until 30 days or 15 days before the end of the fiscal calendar. So that's just my thought.
So, thank you for getting that out. I too found it. And forwarded it to Carl, that's why I thought he printed it. I printed it tonight. Carl was the chairman of the Board of Finance in 2007.
Right.
He then sent, as Carl, the first selectman, sent to Roland, who the executive assistant at the time, to redistribute it in November 6, 2008. So.
No, well, I wasn't first selectman in November in 2008.
He says
Board of
your
Finance.
name. Oh, you forwarded it to Roland, all right, my mistake.
Yeah.
All right, so, it was originally done in September 18, 2007 by the previous administration. As chairman, you said you requested it be sent again in 2008, and we should keep this
Yeah.
top of mind and throughout the year.
Yeah, and so we do keep it in mind all through the year. I mean, you get monthly reports, and I usually, you guys look at them and we say, are there any comments on them? And I try to, wherever possible, in fact, the contingency account this year, we were watching that from day one. And a few other accounts, watching it from day one. So the awareness of this board is, you're very aware of where the budgets are monthly and what budgets are in trouble. I think we're in much better shape this year than we have been the last couple. You know, but I'm all over that. I'm all in favor of it, of watching these as closely as possible and making sure they're not exceeded. And eventually, if something's more than 25,000, it has to go to a town meeting.
Right.
Short of that, it doesn't.
So we're gonna get the final numbers in August, you feel? Second meeting in August?
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
when you talk about final numbers, you're talking about when the audit report
Yeah.
comes out. What I'm telling you is that after 60 days, Lisa and I go through all the check registers for July and August to make sure that anything had an invoice before June 30th appears against the statement. I mean, that's just the way finances work. Okay, you have to add the payables in. And I'm saying that I won't have those numbers, the payable numbers, until the end of August.
So probably the first meeting in September.
But
But we'll have an inkling earlier than that.
yeah, if the treasurer's report in August, you're going to have
Most of
a
it.
better number,
Yes.
a much better number than you do now, and then a better number the next month after that. And
The final numbers don't come out until December
Yeah.
31st, but the audit report.
So if there's a deficiency, say, the first meeting in September, could.
a
also-
deficiency,
In a particular budget,
okay.
could the department head give us an outline as to why it
Well,
happened?
you've already had some of those, like,
Right, but we've gotten them like in November.
No, we've gotten them
you
in.
got some recently.
So,
Christine
no, I
Nelson sent you
understand that.
land
I'm
use,
saying,
yeah.
year end, when we get the number, can we, at that point, have an outline from the department head? You know, why-
Yeah, sure. I mean, let's look at the numbers and,
We asked for them last year, and I believe we got them in November.
we'll get them however you, most of them are already done. I asked for memos. I asked
Right.
each department head to give you memos, and you've received memos. So, they can be updated, perhaps, in September. But you have a bunch of them.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. When somebody's over their budget, and obviously we can see right away with the information that Bob has sent us, you know, we want to know why they're over budget, but also if there's particular problems, why they can't maintain
Right.
control of their budget. There's 7 of us on the board here, and yourself and Bob, a lot of experience here that could guide the individual to how to keep something within budget.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There are some unforeseen, I mean, you can budget in zone it in land use, you can budget for legal. You have no idea whether you're gonna be under or over. So that's why you should get an explanation, and that's why I've asked department heads to give you that. Overall, I think, as Bob indicated, we're in very good shape, overall, very good shape.
Carl, I know you explained it once before. Land use was raising their fees to cover all of those extra expenses. Could you explain to me again why we have that overage of their budget?
In land use, there's the legal line item actually has driven it over quite a bit.
That's almost always the reason why. That's almost always the reason. Zoning gets in trouble is because.
They can't bill out our hours, it's hard to say. Our hours, out to the plaintiff, whatever you call it, appellant.
You mean?
You're the lawyer, what do they call it?
Well, wait, so they can't bill their hour, if they prevail, the losing party, you mean?
Right.
Pays?
Doesn't work.
Yeah, I wish it did. Well, maybe in some cases you wish it did, in some cases not, but that's not our system.
But recognizing that that is the system, we, a long time ago, built that ordinance 71, right? The one that when we take a new application for some development, the very first thing that the commission does is to determine what some of its costs are going to be for reviewing the application.
Engineering.
And we have them put a performance bond down, and then we spend that down in legal and in engineering and things like that. But that doesn't stop the fact that once in a while, something will go to court that we didn't expect, and that's where the costs come from.
So, just to give you an example, labor and personnel this year, which is our collective bargaining agreements, our negotiations, we're gonna be under, probably by about 25 grand is my guess. Next year, I'm not so sure about that. This 15, 16, not so sure about that. I'm not saying that for any reason other than I think it's, last year we had finished some contracts right before the new year, and now we're still negotiating too, and we will be over the next 12 months. So that could get expensive. So, you know, to cut back 1 year, and I'm trying to flatline some of these budgets so that I've tried to get them to a point. I'm not gonna just reduce a legal budget from 75 to 25, just because I wanna keep it there in case we need it. And if we're under it, great. If we're not, I'll come to you and say, we're not, and I need more money, and you'll hear that. It's a guessing game. With legal and labor and personnel, guessing game. And I'm not afraid to say that publicly. You don't know if you're gonna settle a contract or go to arbitration. You don't know. There's a $75,000 delta between those two.
Question to Carl. Reference the ending budget and how financially strong the town is. We have any more tax assessment appeals? And
We do. We do. We have about 6 or 7 pending. I don't think it's changed that much since the last time I gave you an update.
Okay.
We have a court date on the CVS one, that's in September. And then we have some newer ones that are gonna work their way through the system over the next 4 to 8 months. There's about 6 or 7 right now. Three or four are bigger ones. So.
What's the ratio of our savings to the budget? In other words, you use 8 to 10%, what is that number now?
Well, it's down a little under 7, I think, at the moment.
That's what I get concerned about.
Yeah, well, I did too, and that's, every time we talk to a rating agency, they look at our finances and say, wow, you've got this wonderful municipal reserve accounts out here. Why can't we be AAA like other towns? And they say, well, it's because your fund balance is too low. That's always the answer they give. And so that's why we should work on that.
I thought we were working on it.
We are working on it.
This year in particular, you're gonna see a big difference.
But the thing that cost us the most was the storm-related costs of the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
That's what made us fall from 8.5% down to below 7.
But even with the money you got back, you're still at 7, right?
We'll be over.
No, that'll go up probably.
I think it'll go up between the end of the year budget picture and the FEMA reimbursement. I'd say you're talking at least a couple percentage points.
Well, I'll calculate it for you as soon as I have it, all right?
Okay, thank you.
I think it's gonna be rather significant.
I would.
I would suggest though, that, you know, based on this, and we find out in September who's over and how much, anything over 25,000, we get a detailed explanation.
Go to town. I have to, yeah.
But for,
She's saying September.
but in September, we get,
Yeah. Next division. Any other comments?
Make a motion to adjourn.
You'll be in Maine next time?